Okay, welcome to the session and good morning once again. Hope you guys can listen to me clearly. If you have any audio problem, please raise the hand. All right. So just to recap what we discussed yesterday we were touching upon understanding what is big data, right? So there is a lot of buzz around that. So it's very important to understand the what is big data and what data qualifies as a big data and what are the different characteristics properties of big data and some of the real time scenarios in finance, real estate, traveling with across the industries, right? So right now we have enormous amount of data. There are a lot of data being generated in the internet, social media, and there are other places as well, right? So how do we process this data? We need the tools and technologies to process this data, right? We need a scalable solution to process this data. So that's where uh, the Microsoft Azure data factory come into picture. So we also discussed about some of the advantages of why Microsoft Azure and what is the market share, etc. Right, and also we touched upon kind of a very basic what is Azure Data Factory. Okay, so in today's session we'll be covering more details about Azure, and we'll be starting with the Azure storage, right? Because storage is one of the key element in cloud computing. If you ask about the cloud computing, there are two differentiators. One is storage, and another one is compute. Okay, so without storage, nothing works. Whether it's an ADF, ADB, or if you are building an app, or whatever you do, you need a storage, right? Without storage, no other services works. Okay, so we'll be discussing more in terms of what is storage, what are the different options available in Azure, and what are the some of the real time when you get into real time scenario, how this storage you can use in different aspects of development. Okay, so that's the pretty much agenda. And once the storage is complete, we also discussing about the um, some of the building blocks of Azure Data Factory, which is linked service and as well as data sets. Okay, so this is agenda for today. So before we get into the agenda, are there any questions from previous classes? Okay, hope you all uh, got what we discussed in the previous class. But if you still wanted to, I think the videos are available in the app. If you can refer back, and if you want to go through once again, just go through that, and any questions we can discuss in further sessions. Okay, so let's get started with Azure storage. So what is the storage, right? And what are the different offerings Azure provides um, in cloud computing as part of the storage, right? So storage is one of the massively scalable object store for data objects. And also we have file system service for the cloud. And also we have a message store for reliable message. And also we have a NoSQL store. Okay, so these are the different offerings that Microsoft offers, right? That we can store data objects and files, services and messages, as well as some kind of a JSON structured, semi-structured kind of a data where we really need not require any database, but immediately we can get some insights. Just store the data and get some insights. Okay, so these are the storage options available, and we'll discuss in one by one in detail. Okay, but before that, the some of the benefits and some of the you know um, the what Azure service storage service provides us, right? Why people are using so much, right? So it offers a durable. So Microsoft ensures that the cloud storage is always available, and 99 it guarantees 99.9999% of availability and durability, right? And the data is always secure in terms of encryption in the data at rest and the transit. Microsoft ensures the data is safe and secure, and it's scalable. You can um, store terabytes petabytes of data without much worry, right? It auto scales, and it's a scale up and scale down whenever is required, right? You need not manually do anything. Okay, so Microsoft takes care everything, and it's managed, right? As I mentioned, you need not look for any patching or any upgrades or anything. It's automatically done through Microsoft, and it's all available as a package to you for the consumers to use. Okay, he need not worry what are the latest, whether the latest certificates it's been available, whether the latest security protocols available, whether the latest security controls are available. So you need not worry about anything. Microsoft takes care of that, and also it's accessible. As I mentioned, storage is one of the key part across the other offerings Microsoft provides, whether it's an app development, whether it's a Kubernetes, whether it's a any other service that you want to use, you need a storage. Without storage, nothing works. Okay, so how do we use this storage? Right, so simple. We need to create an account. Okay, so we'll in real time. I will show you how the um, storage account can be created in portal, right? But before that, just gets some understanding about these, the different offering, the storage offerings are available. Get more details about that, because see, the reason I'm stressing upon some of the basics is you need to understand the uh, why these things are exist and what are those benefits. Then only you can perform and choose the right option when you're dealing with the real time scenarios, right? I can go ahead and just any use any of them, and I can show you, but that doesn't give you the confidence that why some other things are available and what is those purpose. You need to understand that. Okay. So that's the reason I'm stressing more upon the basics and understanding the in detail. And then once you know these details, you can very much use those the right solution to your use case and perform the development activities. Okay, so that's the objective. Okay, all right. So as we seen in the last slide, so there are four offerings available in the storage. One is file, queue, table, and blob. Okay, so these are the four types are available. Okay, so let's deep dive into the in detail one by one. Okay, so blob storage, right? Blob storage is for storing the object stores in terms of text and binary data. Okay, whether you have a use text files or any binary data in terms of audio, video, any kind of data that you want to access, images. So for those kind of storages we use a blob storage, right? And it's some of the ideal situations where blob storage is helps much is like images, documents, files, and where you need a distributed access, right? And it's very ideal for streaming and video and audio, right? And also storing a backup and restoring the backup from archival, disaster recovery. All those stuff is blob storage is meant for. Okay, and particularly the last one is the storing the data and do the analysis. All right, so for doing this analysis, there is no other option is better than blob storage. Okay, so what is the structure of blob storage? right? So the blob storage structure, as you can see, once you create the storage account, you can use a blob storage by, and within that blob storage you can create the containers. Okay, you can create n number of containers, right? And then within that containers you can use the files and folders you can create, and then store the required data. It's a simple structure. Okay, and we'll be discussing in more in as an example in the portal. Okay, so you have a blob storage which contains containers, like in this case container A, B, C, D, depend on the need, and you can create more or less containers. And then each container will have the respective files and folders you can differentiate. For example, container A is for my, my finance use case. Container B is for my, within the finance, there are, maybe anti-money laundering, right? So similarly, container C is for my marketing analysis. Container D is for my, real estate analysis, right? So think about that, see, company as a whole enterprise perspective, right? We cannot store and dump all the data into one place, and nobody knows how to what data is it for and all. So this container helps us logically divide the data into multiple, uh, segregate the data into multiple what do you call the containers, right? So that it easily refer, if somebody is logs in, he can only work with container A, which is the finance data. I am responsible for finance. I will only work with container. If somebody else is using marketing data, he will use the container C, right? The container that belong to market, right? And once you got that in, and also the respect you can create within the finance, you can create the folders. Okay, this is my payroll data, this is my employee data, this is my mark any mark, the performance appraisal data, so on and so forth. You can create the folders in that, so that is easily available. Okay, so that's about the blob storage. So once you have the data in place in the blob storage, right? So we have different access tiers. Okay, so not all the data can be accessed all the required all the time. Let's say if I'm using I'm keeping the data uh, throughout an year, right? So I'm not going to use entire the year's data every time in my use case, right? And also that puts you also, there are costs are associated with that. Okay, so that's where Microsoft provides different access tiers, right? For example, you see hot tier, cool tier, and archive tier. So hot tier is the data which is always online data, and it's the purpose of hot tier is more of more accessing the more frequent data or modified data. As my data is coming, right, I'll put it into the hot tier. And as the time passes, and it becomes the earlier data become old, I can move those old data which is no longer um frequently required. I can move it to the either cool or archival tier, right? That way I can manage my costs, because hot tier is cost very high than the cool and archival. Okay, so hot tier is optimized for storing data that is accessed and modified very frequently. That means the latest data which is in my hot tier, right? And and the passes, then we can move the data to cool tier. Cool tier is basically the more than 30 days of data, right? The default is 30, but according to your need and your the organization needs, you can optimize these tiers, right? Because for example, the 30 I wanted to make it 90, or 120, you can make it whatever the required requirement from the organization perspective. Right? And then once, even after that, you have another tier which is archive tier. Okay, so the data is consumed and used, the data is no longer required, right? In that case, we can take a conscious decision to move the data to archival, right? For example, as I mentioned, the backup data. Backup is one of the most important. When you need a backup, maybe if some case some eventual situation happens, some for a disaster required, something has failed, your servers get crashed, so you want to restore the data from the backup. So those kind of situations only the archival tier helps, right? Otherwise it's in an ongoing business as usual day, you don't need to access the archival data very frequently. That's why it's called offline tier. It's offline, but whenever it's required, it's available. You can turn it to online and you can get the data, right? So Microsoft gives the data which is more than 180 days. It's categorized as an archival, but we can configure our own way based on the need and requirement. Okay, so that's about access tiers, and the next one would be file storage. Okay, so the before moving, so this access tiers applicable across the different storage types. Okay, this is not just a blob storage, but it across even in the file or even in a uh, NoSQL store, anywhere you can use the same. These concepts will work. Okay. All right. So moving on to file storage. File storage also have a different. We call it as a share here. Okay, share A, share B, share C, something like. Okay. So within share, you can again your own folders and files you can create. Okay, it's a simple structure. So the most usage of file storage, and if you guys working in an enterprise, there is a called in Windows, there is a called a network drive, right? Where the everybody puts their data, project wise data, and shared across the projects, right? Any organization templates and any organization data that's put into a shared drive. The shared drive is accessible to across the enterprise. So similarly, file storage is a cloud-based shared drive, right? Where where the data directly you can move from on-prem to cloud without doing anything, just dumping it. Okay. All right. So now we have learned about file and as well as the blob storages. Now, which one to use when? Right. This confusion always ticks on our mind, right? So whether should I use file or whether should I use blob storage, right? So as I mentioned, file storage is only specific to need of a as a use it as a network drive. Okay, so that is the most you can get most out of yeah, if you use it as a network drive, right? For the rest of the use cases, for analysis, all other stuff, streaming, all other stuff, you can go and use blob storage. There is no doubt. Okay, it's a simple, right? So as I meant, as I write, if you need file share via SMB or lift and shift, what is lift and shift? So I have some data available in my on-prem, and I wanted to, as part of organization initiative, I wanted to move to cloud, right? So don't think anything, spend most of the time, but just use a lift and shift and bring the data from on-prem to cloud using a file storage. That's it. Okay, and the rest of the use cases where the analysis, streaming, on all the stuff, you use the blob storage. All right, so the other one is a storage queue. So this is very unique purpose, and many organizations working on storage message queue system. For example, if you see, there are the legacy systems where they work on messaging queues, right? That means the messages keep coming into the queue, and then it is distributed to the consumers based on their need. So those kind of storages, the queue storage helps. So that the structure remains more or less same across these types, that you have a QA, QB, QC, QD. You can create the respective queues. For example, you are getting a some marketing related, marketing related messages, so you can create a market queue, and then you can create a some some advertisement or something, some messages are coming, so you can create an advertisement queue. Similar like that, you can segregate the logically you can segregate the queues, and then within that you can keep the messages, so that it's easy for the consumers. Okay, if somebody wants to access the QC, he will just access the QC and get those messages rather than dumping everything together. Okay, the last one, table storage. So it's, as I said, it's a NoSQL store where you have a large JSON structure kind of a files available, right? So you can quickly you can available at on-prem or enterprise. You can quickly move those data to table storage, where where you need not maintain the complex relationships with other files. These are just individual files. You can just get them to table storage and store over there, and then you can directly start analysis. Okay, so the table storage again, we can create multiple tables. There is no limit on that, and within the table you can put hundreds of thousands and even billions of rows of data within each table. There is a scalable, there is no limit on that. All right. So okay, so we know what are the different, what is the storage account, and we know what are the different storage options available, and we brought the data, right? See, one of the fundamental thing about cloud computing is the availability, right? So many people are concerned. Okay, the initially there were a lot of concerns and questions. Okay, if I bring my on-prem data to cloud, is it my data is safe, right? Because it's a cloud, it can happen anytime, at any point of time, anything can happen, right? So how do I ensure my data is safe, even some of the eventuals happens, right? So you see, the eventualities, nobody can control those eventualities, but we can design such a way that even something happen, my data is safe. So that's where the replications come into picture. Okay. So replication. Suppose the same example. See, I'm working in my laptop. What the my motherboard suddenly crashes? What will happen to my data? Right. So or something broken, and my laptop is not even getting started. So what will happen to my data? Right. So I mean, you would have had in many places, right? You need to design a system to break that, right? Don't assume that the way I'm designing, it's never going to break anything. It's always foolproof, and it's always 100%. Never think of that. You need to design for breaking, right? So what if it breaks? What if my laptop crashes right away? What my motherboard crashes right away, right? And what I'm not able to turn on my laptop at all. I don't know what is that issue. But even irrespective of those situations, which is not in our control many of times, and the same thing can happen at enterprise level. What the data center, get into a fire, and some fire had broken, and the entire data center is down, right? And what will happen, the entire network is down, some cabling, some pipe, the cabling has broken and the network is down, right? What will happen in those situations, right? But my business has to continue. I cannot, because of the data center is down, I cannot just shut down my enterprise, my business, right? So in those eventual situations also, we should ensure the data is available, and it's accessible for the business to continue, right? That's where the replication will come into picture. So there are three type of redundant we can create: locally redundant, zone redundant, and as well as geo redundant, right? So what is local, what is zone, what is geo? I think these are the fundamentals of cloud computing, right? Many of you, many of you would have already read, or somewhere you have heard of uh, these words. but I would suggest you, even if you don't know, don't worry, go back and read the uh, basics of cloud computing. All right. So what is this let me simply put you a question. All right. Many of you know what is cloud computing. If you ask me, if you ask a simple question, what is cloud computing, can someone please answer? Come on guys, it's very basic. Okay. So if you see, go back to the 10, a decade or so, every organization has their own data center, right? There is a complete IT systems and IT department that manages the data and the software, hardware, everything, right? So that's becoming with a as evolving, that's becoming too costly for the organizations in terms of maintaining hardware, software, and the data center. So to it's a very um, awkward kind of a situation for a small companies where they cannot afford to manage a entire IT and on their premise, right? Because it requires a network, it requires heavy servers, it requires bandwidth, it requires machinery to keep those the place safe, and you need lot of security protocols. And because it's an enterprise data, anything, if anything happens, you will lose the data, and your whole organization will go down, right? So that is where this cloud computing happens. So instead of you handling the entire stuff, Microsoft will take care and will handle that. So they have created a data centers across the world. They have around, I think, some around 50 or 50 to 100 data centers they have across the world. One of such is available, I think, in Mumbai, in India. Okay. So what this data center does? So data center is basically, it keeps the data in safe and a secured manner, right? So instead of you managing everything, Microsoft will manage for you. Like that, there are 100 companies, 100 businesses is running across the world. So they will club everything and they will manage through one data center. Okay. So now one data center, that is good. Now what will happen if the data center is down for some reason? Right? The same question will popping up again. So now what they do is they maintain a zone, right? So we have a, for example, they have a South Asia zone, right? So they have one here, they have one in Hyderabad, they have one in Singapore, they have one in Malaysia, right? So even if something happen in India, so the data is available to access from Singapore. Even if something happen in Singapore, it's available from access from Malaysia, right? So this is called as Central South region. Okay. So now what will happen geographic, right? What will happen? Let's assume that India is down, Malaysia is down, and um, uh, Singapore also down. So what will happen? So that's where you have a geo redundant. So geographically, so okay, so southeast, entire southeast down. Okay, move to North America. Right, we have a North America. They have many places. They have data centers. They have a, in many Ohio and all other places. They have the um, data centers. Right. So one file, if you load, so that the file going to be redundant across the regions, across the locally, zonally, and geographically, right? Depending on your use case. If the file is so important, with the data is so important, you cannot run any business without the data. The data should be available 100% all the time, 24 by 7 by 365 days. Then you need to design your storage account such a way that it's either redundant locally, zonally, and geographically. Because see, as I mentioned, anything can happen. Something can happen. Some situation can come where entire India is down. We have down in Mumbai, we have down in Hyderabad, everywhere is down. So what we'll do, right? So that's where this replication plays a major role. And depending on the need, you need to, while designing the storage for your project, you need to decide, is it locally okay. Okay, if it's no, if it's local is not enough, go to journal. If journal is not enough, go to geo. Okay, and these different storage replication types cost you differently. If you for example, if you put any file, any data to storage, the local redundant by default it takes care. Okay, by default the local redundant takes care, and according to the needs you can set up journal or the geo redundant. Okay, and journal and geo redundancy are cost wise, they are little costly because the your data is keeping in multiple places which cost to the company, so it will be charged to the client. Simple. Okay, so these are the concepts, guys, so very very important. Okay, so when you say Azure data engineering, it's not just some data comes, I'll just run pipeline and I'll dump the data. No, that's not enough. You need to know, you need to design entire solution, right? What the data, my data is the my data comes and it's not accessible. If it's the storage is not accessible one location, what should I do, right? So these are very very important. And it takes it's the same thing, right? This is the foundation. If the foundation is strong, you can build as many as floors, there is no doubt. But if you don't understand the foundation properly and you just build the floors, the building going to collapse. Okay, so spend some time, understand in more details. There are a lot of plenty of material and the content is available in Microsoft. Okay, so these are the cloud computing basics is more important. Okay, so that's about the storage. Any questions so far? Yeah, somebody is saying something. Okay,
Hello.
yeah,
Hi, good morning.
yeah,
For this Azure Data Factory, can we learn Python also? It is required for this Python or PySpark, everything.
yeah. As part of this course, we'll be covering both Azure Data Factory plus PySpark with Azure Databricks.
Is this compulsory required Power BI or a SQL for this Azure Data Factory?
Yeah, SQL is good. Okay, and we are also touching upon some of the basic SQL in this course that is required for for a bit to begin as a data engineer, and then of course eventually based on the need, based on the project, you will learn, right? But Power BI, if you ask me, I don't think you need you need to master SQL.
Okay, it's just the basic part, Power BI
Yeah,
also.
basic pass. Yeah, basic things. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It is just a basic or a moderate level Power BI.
So I would say it's a basic to moderator. Okay, and see the the basics moderator, these are the boundaries, right? So
Hmm.
for example, if some project expects there is a lot of transformations or the aggregations you have to do, so Power Builder automatically it will does, right? You need not write a complex SQL query or anything. Okay, but if the situation demands, there is a very uh, custom which we cannot drill down and drill up the report, and you need to write a custom. There is you need to write a custom code. Okay, so that's anyhow you will see there are a lot of things. The building blocks and the foundational stuff you will learn as part of the training, and a lot of stuff you will also learn on the job, right? So when if you're starting, if you see this is what I used to tell my students. When you start as a data engineering, the first 90 days, right, it's going to be crazy. No matter how strong you know, and how strong you're in foundation, you first 90 days going to be crazy. You if you are a good learner, and if you are a good enthusiastic guy, you can easily learn what's happening in the entire organization within those 90 days. So those 90 days are crucial, right? So that's where you will enhance the learnings what you got from the training and apply to your real-time projects. Does it
Okay.
answers you, Prakash?
Yes, yes. And how can I expect this for these opportunities or growth in further coming that area? So everybody is saying that nowadays there is no calls, even the Power BI are so leave it the Power BI, ADF also there is no more calls. So how can I get the good opportunities for the area?
See, that's a very good question, right? So right now, there is a situation across the world, right?
Hmm.
So and across the industries, they are kind of realigning their strategies and priorities, right? So there is a situation right now. I understand, but it's not. It's kind of a temporary, right? You can't. This situation will not continue forever, right? That's an understand. Now, what maybe after 3 months or 6 months, if the market is up, right, we need to brush up. We need to keep
Okay.
ready for the fight, right? So that is where this effort is going to be. Right now, you are putting yourself, and you are preparing yourself for the next opportunity to come. Right. Having said that, there are still, I mean, there's the entry level and even less than 5 years, the market still relatively good. It's not completely dry, or not no calls at all, not something like. But still, the entry level less than 5 years, still the opportunities are there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So are you working already, or you're just trying to find an entry level?
No, I am from some electrical background, so I worked
Okay.
in some companies like electrical energies.
Yeah.
So now I wanted to shift into this career to grow my career into the area of Azure services.
Okay. Speak to speak to the
So
training
Madhusri,
training coordinator. Yeah, so he will guide you how to take your next, what are the next steps to be done. Okay.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else from anybody? All right. So let's quickly uh, move to let's create a storage account. Okay. So we've been so we were doing learning what is storage account and all. So let's do some hands-on. So hope everybody has their own free account in Azure, right? So if you don't have, just create it, and it's very useful for you to practice and understand the concepts. Okay, so that's where Microsoft is spending to by giving free account, right? And it's available with the credits. Okay, so it's a very useful for you. So you can see, right? When you sign up as a free, you will get 15,799.99 credits. Okay, so this is more enough for you to practice these concepts and understand more details, right? See, it's like, right, when you go to school or college, right? Teaching and learning the concepts and understanding is different, and getting those things you need to practice. That's what they give a lot of homework, right? So so the same analogy you can apply over here as well. You learn within 1.5 hour the concepts and why, what, and how, and then and followed by a kind of a hands-on. But for you to demonstrate, for you to gain the in-depth knowledge, need to practice it. And without practice nothing works, right? Recently I was learning driving, right? So that guy, he is teaching me in a Maruti Alto, right? And the driving is just 2 weeks of driving lessons. But just 2 weeks I can become perfect. And when I after 2 weeks I just bought a car, and the first day itself I met with an accident. Right? So those, that is the reality. Okay, so you need to practice, practice, practice. And I asked the same question to him. Hey, look, you just giving me 2 weeks. 2 weeks is enough to drive a, car. Then he said, you will learn the rest of the things. You will learn when you drive in the traffic kind of a Bangalore or Hyderabad kind of a traffic. If you drive, you will learn automatically, right? So that is where these free account, these free credits will work, right? And believe me, it's going to be helpful for a beginners very much. Okay, so you have to leverage this opportunity because hey, look, Microsoft is spending billions on the same to train and to equip the people so that they are ready when the market comes. Okay, so once you log into portal, you see a lot of services are available, right? And there are hundreds of services are available. Okay, so now with respect to our training, we will not be using all these, right? So you see compute, network, storage, web, mobile, containers, databases, analytics, machine learning, internet of things. Just so many are available. Okay, so we don't need all these things, right? Even if you don't know all these things, which is okay. Nobody knows all entire thing. Even I don't know everything out of all these services. Okay, so what we need, storage account. Just type a storage account here, right? You can see there is a search over here, and if you type, it will give all the storage related, and you can see the on top is the storage accounts. Right, just click on that. Okay, so right now I don't have anything and no storage accounts to display, right? So just to create one, either you can create a plus here or you can create a storage account from here. Okay, so now once you are into storage, so first thing it will ask you the subscription, right? So right now I have a free subscription provided by Microsoft, so I'll be using that. But in real time, when you're working for an enterprise use cases, you will not be using a free trial, right? There is a specific enterprise subscription is available. So as a data engineer, it's your duty to ask if somebody gives you, hey, work on this requirement, right? So you need to ask the basic questions. Okay, what subscription should I use, right? Is it already available or do I need to create? In most of the cases, subscription and everything is already created and it's available for you to use. But it's a very important question to ask because in real time there may be 100 subscriptions are there. Which one to use? Okay. Now, before getting into that, what is subscription? So subscription is like a same like if you are a Netflix subscription or Hotstar subscription or something else subscription, right? You can have multiple subscriptions as well, right? Subscription is nothing but is an account, right? That been charged to your usage, right? So that been uniquely identified the usage of a certain resources, right? The same thing for here as well. So here I am using a free subscription provided to me. Otherwise, if I go for a pay as go model, I need to create my own subscription so that at the end of the month, the billing, the resources which I am consuming in that subscription will be billed to that subscription. right? And the subscription will have a your account, your bank account details, all those stuff, and the billing will happen automatically, right? And in real life scenario, as I mentioned, real life scenario, there may be multiple subscription maintaining the organization, right? Because organization wants to track what is the spend on my marketing department, what is the spend on my finance department, what is the spend on my product department, they are using these services, right? So if an organization gets a $100,000 bill at the end of it, they will be like it's a shock. I mean, 100,000. Who is using what? Right? How much is marketing is using? How much is finance is using? So those kind of details can happen through the subscription. Now, once the subscription is coming, the resource group you need to create. So what is a resource group? For example, I have created a demo resource group, and there are a number of reports can be created. So what is resource group, right? So within marketing department, right? So there may be a development environment, there may be yet, there may be a production, right? So it depend on organization to organization and use case to use case. Now within my subscription, okay, 25,000 bill I got for marketing. Now within 25,000 bill, who is using what? How much I'm spending in my development resources? How much I'm spending in my user acceptance test resources? And how much is my production cost? Right. So you'll be working in different environments, right? I hope you understand this. You will not directly deploy any everything into production. That's not going to happen in the real time. You will be developing and testing, you doing the unit testing in your dev resources, and then you will be moved to the user acceptance test. There is another environment. You deploy the pipeline to unit test, user acceptance test, and where the business users, what are the functionalities you have developed, they will also test in that environment, and then ensure the expected functionality is working fine, and then finally you will migrate the entire code to production. So these are the steps happen in a typical software engineering, right? So the resource group is helps you to logically group the resources, either dev, in our case either dev in UAT or production, right? For example, I will give you, for this project, for this use case, you are building a typical analysis. So you need um, three SQL databases, one for development, one for user acceptance test, and one for production. You need three SQL databases. You need three um, Azure pipelines to be created. You need to three and so on and so forth, right? So now if you dump all the three into one resource group, you again you are clueless which one is using by whom, which is costing more, which is costing less. And for example, a production, you need a high grade of resources, right? And then compared to production, you need a kind of a little less expensive resource for UAT. And even for development, even if you need a more less expensive resource, right? You cannot use all the resource, the same level of resource for across the different categories, right? So these are things will come into picture. These are things will keep in mind when you designing a use case, when you designing a system in the real time. Okay, so these are very important, guys. So I know I'm spending a lot of time. Some of you already know, or some of you know looking at fresh. But these are the basic things when you are trying to work with real time. Okay, so in this that's the story about resourcing. So I have created a resource called a demo, right? For our demo purpose, I have created just a ring, and I can create any number. There is no just it's just giving the name. Okay, then demo, and then I can give a practice one, right? So there is no limitation on that is it's not going to take anything. Okay, so for now and as soon as you create it, all the resource groups are available, so you can pick which one is relevant to your use case, and accordingly you can create the storage account. Okay, simple. Okay, so once we move, okay, so you given the high level header information. Now let's move what other. So storage account name. Okay, so I can give demo storage. Okay, so now this has to be unique. You can see it will contain only lower cases. Okay, so this has to be unique. If you are giving same name and again, you will get an error. Okay, now you need to select the reason, right? So if you understand, I touched upon high level what is the reason and what is the geo location and what is the local, right? So if you see, Microsoft operates all these regions. I told you, right? So they have these many data centers they are operating across the world. So you can see in Africa they have one region, and Southeast Asia they have multiple. You can see we have in Australia, Central India they have in Mumbai. Okay, and East Asia, Japan and Korea, Southeast Asia, right? They all falls into Asia Pacific. And then we have a Canada, and then we have a Europe. Multiple regions are available in Europe, right? And then we have a Middle East, and we have a South America, and then North America, right? And these as they keep investing and they create more and more based on the demand, more and more regions and the data centers accordingly. Okay, but this is, if you ask me, these are the one of the costliest data centers I was talking about. If any organization wants to maintain these uh, data centers on their own, is going to be one of the biggest uh, costing effect, right? So now, so how does, for example, if I'm using central India, see, I'm part of India, so I want to use central India because all my data I'm serving to my customers are part of India, so that data needs to be stored in my India only, right? Now let's say that I'm building an app for um, across the US and India, and most of my customers are from US. So what I'll do? So US customer to use, I need to use the region that is suitable for my US customers, either north or west, or within west I can choose the east or US2 or west US2 3 something like, which is suitable for my end users. See, imagine, assume that you're developing an app, right? So that app is mostly you have customers from the US, right? So the data is going to be accessed by the US citizens or most, and their data needs to be stored at their own local, right? So in that case you will choose US related region. Now coming to this Middle East. So Middle East people, there is a regulation from their country that you cannot store their data out of their region. For example, you are developed an app and you are serving Middle East customers. You cannot store the data in US region. It's not acceptable by those regulations and laws. Okay, you have to store their data in their local regions only, right? So these are there are lot of permutations and combinations while designing a storage account. Okay, there are there are regulatory laws, there are for region level laws, and there are country specific laws, so you need to be careful and mindful about all those stuff. For example, you are designing a app related to healthcare, right? So healthcare, you have to, as per country's law, you have to store your healthcare data in that country only. You cannot take out of that, right? Now, uh, the same thing, financial data. You're working in a financial company, and the data needs to be stored in a cloud, right? So you cannot store Middle East finance data in US region. Okay, why? Because that's a law. In order to operate in Middle East, you have to be abide by those laws. Okay, so that is where these different regions are available for us to select a right storage account. Okay, so now coming to that, so since this is a demo purpose, I just use the Central Asia India one. Okay, now you must be wondering, uh, you have Africa, you have Asia, you have Canada, Europe, okay, US, South America, North America, everything you have, right? And one thing is missing. Can somebody guess what is missing here? China. China is missing. Why China is not there? Right? You can see China is not here. Why? Because China government, they have different laws, right? So you cannot store any data related to China in a public domain, public cloud computing, right? So to do that, what happened is, that's where if you see across this portal, you don't have any China, you cannot any reason or anything, you cannot just use China, right? For China, Microsoft maintains a different portal altogether. Okay, they have tied up with a third party, I think VNet something, which is a Chinese organization. So they have tied up with them to only serve the Chinese customers using a different portal altogether. Right? Why? Because that's the Chinese government law. You cannot club everything the China data. You cannot store it in the US or in anything. Right? You understand that very well. Okay. So that's about right. So again, these are concepts very well important. All right. Okay. Now. There are two performance tiers. There are two, standard and premium, right? So in real time use case, you will be working with premium, but for us, standard is good. Okay, we are okay with that. And then redundancy we talked about. Okay, so you can see the multiple local geo zone, right, and geo zone. There are multiple available. Okay, so and their associated costs are associated with each of these options. Okay, so for now I just use locally. I don't want to use any other thing. Okay, so just review it. Okay, so I'm using free trial. It's a demo and location. Okay, all are good, right? So okay, so everything looks good. Okay, so so it's doing the final validation before creating the account. See, validation is failed. So what is failed? Let's see. See, the storage account name demo storage is already taken by somebody else. So I need to use a different name. Okay, so validation is done. So I can create a storage account. So it just takes a few minutes to deploy the necessary resource for the storage. Okay, so you can see the progress over here. All right, so you can see deployment is in progress. It just takes couple of minutes. You can see the status over here as well. See, this is the difference between a free account and a paid account, right? If it's a paid account, it won't take this much of time. Since it's a free, right? So it's taking their own course. Okay, so now it's ready to. So our storage account is ready. It's ready to usable. Okay, so now you see lot of options are available, right? There is a storage explorer, right? And there are a lot of actions that you can do in the left hand panel as well. See, we were discussing about creating containers, right? So the containers you can create it over here. By default, the logs containers created, but you can create our own container. For example, I want to create a uh, again demo training, right? So now within that, I have the different access levels are available, either private or blob or container. So private means it just to fits my purpose. No, I don't want to. Nobody can access outside of this application, this ADF, right? So if you do at a blob level, a container level, it's available for public, and anyone can access, right? So even in the private case, if somebody wants to access this container, they should get an access from you to access the respective container. Without your access, without your permission, nobody can access this. But if you set it blob and container level, they without your knowledge also, anyone and everyone can use this. Okay. So for now, let's keep private. Okay, as you can see, content is already created and it's available, and you can upload files, right? So you can simply drag and drop. You can browse through files and you can bring it over here. Anything that you want to. Right? For example, I wanted to upload this. See, this file is available in cloud, right? And you can see the file properties and everything, all the stuff you can see. So this is the URL. So this URL you can access this file over internet. Okay, so if you see right now it's saying the specified resource doesn't exist, right? Why it doesn't? It's already there. The reason being is it's not exposed to access outside because I just kept that container as private, right? So the same thing, if I go back, not this one, sorry. Okay. So right now it's in private, so you can't access it, right? But we can convert to a public so that it can be accessed through our internet as well. See, this is the beauty of cloud computing, guys. Anything, so it's a services over internet, right? Anything and everything which is in cloud, I should be able to access through my browser. It should be accessible through internet. Okay. So that's pretty much about the storage account, and it's a very important building block in your cloud journey, and it's useful across the services. And without storage, you can't create anything. Basically, you can't use any other services. Okay, so as part of today's session, we have created the storage account and the containers, right? So we'll be using these container storage, the storage and containers will be bringing some data to our here, and then running using in our ADF pipeline this same service. Okay, that will follow. We'll create some more stuff tomorrow. We'll talk about how how these storage account containers can be leveraged in ADF pipelines. Okay, so that's all for today. Anything, any questions, any final questions? Okay, I think again, it was a wonderful session again. Thanks, everyone.